police radio transmissions made on the evening that officers responded to a call involving confessed serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. Channel 7's Paul Meinke is live in Milwaukee with late details. Paul?
Joel and Linda, the story that's breaking here this afternoon in Milwaukee suggests police incompetence of the most incredible kind. It is contained in the front page of the Milwaukee Journal this afternoon, the headline reading, "Police were in the Dahmer apartment." This was May 27th, nearly 2 months before the first bodies were found there. It was the night that Conorak Sinta-Sampon, the 14-year-old Laotian boy, was spotted by two black teenagers running down the street. He was dazed, naked, bleeding. They called police, who arrived on the scene, and now, according to reports that have been confirmed, police detectives went inside Dahmer's apartment, and they returned the Laotian teenager to Jeffrey Dahmer. They say they saw pictures of Conorak Sinta-Sampon in various stages of undress, but noticed no smell, the smell of death that we've heard so much about since then. They released Conorak to Jeffrey Dahmer, and that night Jeffrey Dahmer says he killed Conorak Sinta-Sampon. The police left. They are saying now, today, late today, that when they went into the apartment, it was neat, it was tidy, nothing was out of the ordinary. They did see the pictures, but they saw nothing unusual about it. And they also said that the young Asian youngster didn't mind staying there. He seemed to be willing to stay in Dahmer's apartment. This afternoon, a union attorney further defended the officers in Milwaukee.
When they got up to the apartment, what they saw confirmed in their minds what they had been told. They saw an apartment that was neat, clean, tidy, had no signs of struggle, nothing out of place, nothing to indicate that this was anything other than just somebody's apartment. During this time, the Asian male sat by himself unassisted on the couch. He showed no signs of any reluctance to enter the apartment, to stay with Dahmer, and he showed no unhappiness, no tension. He didn't groan. He didn't do anything to indicate that he didn't want the police officers to leave when the officers said that's what they were going to do.
Still, there is more incriminating evidence this afternoon. The tapes of the 911 call from officers at the scene to their dispatcher have been released, and they reveal that the officers were laughing as they left the scene.
The intoxicated Asian naked male was returned to his sober boyfriend, and we're 10-8.
They should lose their jobs. They should not be suspended. They should not be, suspended with pay. I don't know what's happening, but they should lose their jobs. This costs people lives.
I'm angry. I'm scared. I'm hurt. Because some of these kids, two of them I knew.
Glenda Cleveland is the mother of Sandra Smith, one of the two 18-year-old girls who first called police back in late May. Glenda says her daughter is feeling guilty herself, wonders if she couldn't have done more, and yet knows she did all she could at the time to tell police what was happening.
Yes, I'm angry. It's not fair. It's not right. She didn't do anything wrong. Nicole didn't do anything wrong, and all the people that were involved, they didn't do anything wrong. And look at the results of it.
Now, when the officers left the scene, also on the tape, they asked the dispatcher, or they say to the dispatcher before they leave, we need to be deloused before we go on to our next assignment. They say that to them, Conorak appeared as an adult. He was intoxicated. Conorak Sinta-Sampon was only 14 years old. Now, if I might, the tapes further contain this conversation between Glenda Cleveland, the lady that we just talked to on tape. She called the police department after they left and said, what's going on here? This is the tape of that conversation.
Yes, there was a squad car, number 68, that was flagged down earlier this evening, about 15 minutes ago.
That was me.
Yeah, what happened, I mean, my daughter and my niece witnessed what was going on. Was anything done about the situation? Do you need their names or information or anything from them?
No, not at all.
You don't?
No. This is an intoxicated boyfriend of another boyfriend.
Well, how old was this child?
It wasn't a child, it was an adult.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Are you positive? Because this child doesn't even speak English. My daughter had, dealt with him before, seen him on the street, catching earthworms.
Yeah, no, he's it's all taken care of, ma'am.
Are you sure?
Ma'am, I can't make it any more clear. It's all taken care of. That's, He's with his boyfriend, and his boyfriend's apartment, where he's got his belongings also.
But
that's where it's released.
Isn't this, I mean, what if he's a child and not an adult? I mean, are you positive this is an adult?
Ma'am, okay, explain to you. It's all taken care of. It's as positive as I can be.
Oh, I see.
Okay, there's, I can't do anything about somebody's sexual preferences in life.
Well, I mean, no, I'm not saying anything about that, but it appeared to have been a child. This is my concern. No,
he's not.
He's not a child.
No, he's not.
Well,
okay.
Obviously, we know that he was not an adult. He was a 14-year-old, and he was killed later that night in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. One of the things that's pointed out here was he was intoxicated. He couldn't talk, and the drinking age here in Wisconsin is 21, so that alone would suggest that police should have checked to see why Conorak Sinthasampone was in the condition that he was in at the time before they left the apartment, and he was later killed. 5 more deaths followed May 27th in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. Reporting live from Milwaukee, Paul Meinke, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Joel and Linda.
Paul, one of the things people must be saying is, how could it be so obvious to some people who just saw this boy on the street and they knew it was a boy when police officers allegedly looked at him carefully and said, no, he's not a boy? How could they not tell?
I don't know the answer to that. Conorak Sinthasampone, from the pictures I've seen and the descriptions offered, is not very tall in stature. He's relatively short, doesn't speak much English. He was very dazed, and as the tape says, he didn't show any reluctance about remaining in the apartment, but we know that Jeffrey Dahmer's victims were drugged, and he very probably could have been drugged at that point. So hindsight is 20/20, of course, but it's a situation where all the neighbors knew that something was not right, and merely a check, a computer check or a call back to police headquarters, ask, your name is Jeffrey Dahmer, what's your record? It would have revealed that he was on probation for a sex offense. 2 and 2 equal 4, but the addition didn't happen here.
What has been the reaction in Milwaukee? I know it's been growing every day, but with the headline in the Sentinel today, what are people on the street saying about their police department?
Well, they are astounded, but a lot of them say that they're not surprised at the same time. We talked to some leaders of gay and lesbian groups here today, and at that point they knew only of the conversation about the delousing and about the laughter as the police left the scene. They said, well, we expect that. It's not the way it should be, but it's something that we don't take as being out of the ordinary. The overall impact on Milwaukee is something that I think is going to take some time to assess. We just talked to a gentleman here who's been watching it, and he said, you know, this town for such a long time was on top of the world, the best kept secret in America, and now it's suffered through this terrible civic trauma which just doesn't seem to stop. Each passing day there is a new revelation that just stuns everyone here.
Tape that police could have ended the murderous rampage of confessed serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer and saved at least some lives. This is the door to the apartment where Dahmer allegedly killed 11 of his 17 victims. Police tapes released tonight reveal that police actually were inside Dahmer's apartment as long ago as May and did nothing. The tapes show police left a bleeding boy in Dahmer's care, a boy Dahmer has admitted he killed moments after the police left. Jay Levine is live in Milwaukee with the latest on this sad and incredible story. Jay?
Adele, the findings of the police probe of whether Dahmer might have slipped through their fingers back on May 27th was accompanied by a flurry of political maneuvering. It was accompanied by the simultaneous release of both the 911 and police communications tapes and a statement for the first time from the lawyers of the 3 police officers who were involved in the investigation. What they provided was a kind of a point-by-point counterpoint to the controversy. First, there was this call from a woman who spotted the 14-year-old on the street.
Yes, because you sent an ambulance on the corner of 25th and State.
What's the problem?
Okay, it's this butt-naked young boy or man or whatever. He's butt-naked. He's been beaten up real bad, and he fell out, and people are trying to help him stand. He can't stand. He's butt-naked. He has no clothes on. He is very hurt.
Police union lawyers say responding officers found the situation not quite as bad as the call implied.
Ma'am. Okay, explain to you. It's all taken care of. It's as positive as I can be.
Oh, I see.
Okay, there's, I can't do anything about somebody's sexual preferences in life.
Well, I'm not saying anything about that, but it appeared to have been a child. This is my concern.
No, he's not.
He's not a child.
No, he's not.
It is clear from both the calls and union lawyers that Dahmer once again charmed his way out of trouble.
That man appeared calm, concerned for his friend, relaxed, and showed no sign of trying to hide anything, no sign of nervousness, which would typically be there if a person were trying to hide a crime.
And this is how the police radio transmissions say the incident ended.
36. 36. The intoxicated Asian naked male was returned to his sober boyfriend.
The officer then said, later in those tapes, that his partner had to return to the station to be deloused. In the course of that 16-minute investigation revealed to be by those police tapes, 3 officers went inside Dahmer's apartment. Now, Milwaukee Police Chief Philip Areola said earlier last week that he didn't see how any officer who'd entered that apartment couldn't know that something was wrong. And so Areola's conclusions to the internal investigation which he received and relayed earlier this hour were somewhat predictable.
The investigation further discloses that the police department individuals who responded failed to conduct a basic, proper police investigation into the matter. Basic law enforcement practices were not followed. Therefore, as a result of this investigation, conducted by the Internal Affairs Division, charges have been preferred against the individuals involved.
The 2-hour flurry of activity, release of the tapes, the statement from the lawyers, and the statement from the police chief, seemed to be very well orchestrated this afternoon. And that, too, may be political maneuvering. The chief seemed to go out of his way to allow the officers' lawyers to speak first, before he released the tapes, a full hour before he himself spoke. And that appears to deal with the unrest which seems to be brewing among officers who are angry at the treatment of their fellow officers, who they feel are being made scapegoats. But at the same time, the chief is balancing...
This hour, dramatic new disclosures in the Jeffrey Dahmer investigation into mass murders in Milwaukee. Milwaukee police have released the 911 tapes of what occurred on the night that 3 officers allegedly returned a Laotian boy to Dahmer.
Channel 5's Charlie Wojciechowski is live in Milwaukee with the latest information. Charlie?
Well, Warner, the tale of the tape is a very disturbing one for the Milwaukee Police Department. One that has the department and the district attorney talking about drawing up charges against those 3 officers for the way they responded to the call to Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment on May 25th, the night one of his admitted victims almost escaped.
To rebuild confidence, to bridge the gap, if there is any, between ourselves and the community. Suffice to say that I personally rededicate myself and the department to this effort.
With those words, Chief Areola responds to damaging evidence recorded by police audio tape on the night that squads were called to Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. We pick up the tape with Tina Spivey after her call for help is transferred to the fire department.
This butt-naked young boy or man or whatever, is butt-naked. He's been beaten up real bad, and he fell out, and people are trying to help him stand. He can't stand. He's butt-naked. He has no clothes on. He is very hurt.
Is he awake?
Yeah, he ain't awake. They trying to get him to walk, but he can't walk straight. He can't even see straight.
Okay.
And every time he stand up, he just fall out.
25th State.
Yeah.
All right.
They're one way.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Next, we hear the dispatcher calls to the units that responded to Dahmer's apartment.
Intoxicated Asian naked male was returned to his sober boyfriend, and we're 10-8. She 18 or she 10. Be a minute. My partner's going to get deloused at the station.
Next, we hear Tina's aunt, Glenda Cleveland, call police to check on the boy her niece reported earlier in the evening. The man talking is an officer who responded.
I can't do anything about somebody's sexual preferences in life.
Well, no, I'm not saying anything about that, but it appeared to have been a child. This is my concern. No,
he's not.
He's not a child.
No, he's not.
At a news conference earlier today, lawyers for the Policemen's Union responded to charges that officers acted improperly on the scene.
They had known, they had suspicion that Dahmer was involved in a past, present, future illegal activity, or that this child, that we know now to be a child, but they thought reasonably back then was an adult, they had any suspicion, they would have moved with all deliberate speed.
Specific charges against any individual officers have not been made public at this point, and they probably won't be for a while. Under Milwaukee City procedure, those officers have 7 days to respond to charges made in this report. Until then, Those charges remain under wraps. Reporting live from Milwaukee, I'm Charlie Wojciechowski. Back to you.
Thanks,
Thanks
Charlie.
very much, Charlie. And in Bath Township, Ohio, investigators have expanded a search for remains of the young man who may have been Dahmer's first victim. The search is on the property surrounding Dahmer's boyhood home. Another 50 bone fragments were unearthed today, the third day of digging at the site. Authorities are looking for the remains of Stephen Hicks, a hitchhiker Dahmer claims to have killed 13 years ago. The search for Hicks' remains will continue at least through Friday.
What was going through Dahmer's mind while he was allegedly committing those grisly murders? His probation report may hold the key.
Dahmer was on probation for sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy. He visited caseworker Donna Chester regularly from April 1990 to just 2 weeks ago. Her notes show a chilling side to the man accused of 17 mutilation murders.
April 12, 1990. Dahmer tells his probation officer that he has no friends and has isolated himself from society and that he drinks alone. The probation officer tells him to first work on alcohol issues and then we will begin to discuss sexual tendencies. 2 weeks later, Chester calls Dahmer's father, Lionel, who admits his son had been abused by a neighbor boy at the age of 8 and says that may be the reason why his son has a problem with sexuality issues.
But by this time, by his own admission, Jeffrey Dahmer has killed 3 men. In June 1978, hitchhiker Stephen Hicks in Ohio. In 1988, Richard Guerrero in Milwaukee. And in March 1989, Anthony Sears in Milwaukee.
May 29, 1990, his probation officer writes that Dahmer usually has a neat appearance but was unkempt and unshaven today, and that he says he was ripped off at his apartment, took his watch, $300, all his clothes.
Meantime, Dahmer says he has killed again, this time a Rockford man, 33-year-old Ricky Beeks. And within days, Dahmer says he strikes out again. In Milwaukee, 28-year-old Edward Smith, now reported missing.
Shortly after that, Dahmer makes a stunning personal admission. He comes to the realization that he prefers male partners, but tells Chester that he feels guilty about this. He feels depressed all the time and talked about suicide. Chester writes she will monitor him closely and will consider a home visit, but because Dahmer lives in a very bad area, a home visit will require another agent to go. The home visit never takes place.
Within 3 weeks, Dahmer says he finds another victim, Ernest Miller, a 22-year-old Chicagoan.
Just 8 days after his last alleged killing, he tells Chester he begins working a 12-hour shift to help him get caught up on his bills. Dahmer works at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory for $8.75 an hour. On September 24th, he wants to know from Chester how he's doing. She tells him okay, but that he was not trying to resolve his problems.
That same night, 23-year-old David Thomas of Milwaukee is missing, Dahmer's 7th alleged victim. And over the next 6 months, Dahmer says he kills 3 more times.
But by May 27, 1991, Dahmer tells Chester he had no major problems.
On this very night, Dahmer allegedly lures his youngest victim to his apartment. It turns out to be 14-year-old Conrad Synthesomphone, the brother of the boy he's on probation for sexually assaulting. Dahmer admits to Synthesophone's mutilation murder. By now, Dahmer's killings are more frequent. On June 30th, Dahmer uses Chicago's gay parade as a tool to talk 20-year-old Matt Turner to Milwaukee. He becomes Dahmer's 12th victim. Dahmer now begins to kill every 6 days. Jeremy Weinberger on July 6th, Oliver Lacey on July 12th.
Just 2 days later, he is fired from his job. On July 18th, he sees Chester in dirty clothes and unshaven. During the interview, he kept yawning as if he was having a problem staying awake.
The next night, Dahmer meets 15-year-old Joseph Bradehoff in Milwaukee, his last known victim. Donna Chester's case reports were based on in-person and telephone interviews with Jeffrey Dahmer.